Dear YouTube and Google, first of all, let me give you a little personal history. I started using your service to watch videos back in the early days of video sharing sites like yourself, Dailymotion, VO, etc. Back in those days, you were just one of several startups trying to make a place for creative people to share their ideas and their work in an internet more or less dominated by flash videos and mostly text websites. Yet I was drawn to your platform. Why? Because unlike the others, you let me load a whole video before watching. You kept ads to a minimum. You didn't put them all over the video, and you used a 5-star rating system instead of the thumbs up, thumbs down system that always struck me as lacking any sort of nuance, although I likely wouldn't have phrased it that way at the time. These things were important to me because I didn't have quality internet all of the time, and frankly, too many ads became tiresome. It was these arguments I used when I sang your praises to any who would hear me. In other words, you were better and I let everyone know it. Eventually, you became the dominant video sharing website on the internet, and over time the ads started showing up, a little at a time. There was always a small banner in the corner. I never had a problem with that. You have to keep your lights on, I'd say to myself. Then there were ads at the front of videos. Well, I told myself, at least I can skip them, and it's not like they're a constant thing, right? It was around this time, I believe, that what we now know as content creators started demanding to be paid for the hours of work that they put into the videos on your platform. I seem to recall that there was much friction to this idea from your end, but eventually a system was put into place where people who made money for YouTube would receive a small kickback for their work. Eventually, the ads became almost abysmal, to the point where I just didn't want to watch anything on YouTube, but there were no real alternatives. And besides, I was starting to become fond of specific creators, such as Shane Dawson, although I still didn't have an account. I want to let that sink in for a moment, YouTube. I came to your website constantly, almost every day, and at this time I was on disability, so I had nothing but time on my hands. Yet I didn't even have an account for a very long time. Eventually I did make an account, just to comment on videos, and rate the ones I liked. Somewhere along the lines, you got rid of the 5-star ratings, and I changed accounts when you merged with Google because of my, at the time, new Android phone. Then came the Google Plus integration, which tried to force me to use my real name, rather than giving me the option to just go by my screen name as Google tried desperately to get Google Plus off the ground. This is petty, but I still go by Mr. Asterisk on my main account, by the way. Eventually, the censorship started, and things started to get stupid in a hurry. First, with Google making safe search mandatory. Thanks, by the way. I finally started using Bing and DuckDuckGo because of that, and found them to be far superior. And then with wave after wave of censorship campaigns on YouTube, with the adpocalypse spurring on more and more intrusive and unnecessary censorship of the website. And don't get me started on that disgraceful limited state crap you rolled out last year. Speaking of which, in or around March of 2017, I finally worked up the courage to start this sub-account for putting up videos. Although it took me until November to put up my first one, and this is technically only the third or fourth video I've made to date, even though by all rights it should have been the first. Why? A combination of stage fright, procrastination, and frankly, what's the fucking point? You can't handle the opinions of anyone who doesn't worship at the same ideological altar as you, so you actively try to censor them. You go out of your way to take money from honest, hard-working folks who have made your platform great, and you use every scandal as just another excuse to clamp down on free speech just a little bit more. To get to the point, YouTube, you have become everything I used to hate about other video sites, and very little of what I used to love about your site even exists anymore. You're not the best anymore, just the biggest. Tell me why, YouTube. Why should I use your site? Why shouldn't I just broadcast myself somewhere else? Why shouldn't I look for other, equally good creators on smaller, less draconian platforms? Give me a reason that makes sense after all the bullshit. Sincerely, a former diehard fan.